with my peak performance coaching is having clarity as to what your outcome is long term, what you are looking to do, how you are going to get there, what skills are missing, are you partnering or not, what is your strategy. Very, very important piece. And it's okay, you don't have to have everything figured out, but the important piece is to have some kind of foundation.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Augustino. As real estate entrepreneurs, one of the key aspects that many of us work on conquering is the ability to raise capital. Now, it seems daunting when you're first starting out. However, once you overcome the limiting beliefs that lurk in all of us, you can achieve your investment goals for yourself and for your partners as well. Well, today's guest understands this. He has built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, just starting with $8,000. Now he's raised over $10 million for his syndication business and grew his senior care business by a factor of 3 times in just 2 years. To do all this, he has applied his 5 pillars of peak performance in real estate to overcome these challenges of strategy and to leverage his resources. Now, to that end, he helps motivated real estate entrepreneurs create more income and impact by aligning their thoughts, emotions, and actions. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Ketan Patel to the show. Hey, Ketan, thanks for coming on, bud.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on your show.
Yeah, thanks. And I think it's going to be great. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Now, if you like what Ketan has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at ketanpatel.com. If you like our content, please don't forget to leave a comment and rate the show. And don't forget to leave us a review. Finally, if you text the word freedom to 202-410-4202, get our free ebook, The Bulletproof Guide to Finding a Broker. Okay, Ketan, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit more about how you got your start.
So I used to be a pharmacist working full time. And I realized that sooner or later, without passive income, you just don't want to keep doing a job. So I started buying single family, triple family homes. And then eventually I bought a business, left pharmacy, got the financial freedom. It wasn't as exciting as I thought it to be. And then one day I just realized that it doesn't matter what you're trying to do in real estate. You need to master raising capital. Without that skill, I'll be limited into what I can buy and what I could do with it.
Interesting. So you got your start with this whole single family thing. So tell us about what was your rationale? So you knew you needed passive income. What was the tipping point? Like, how did you know? Did you read a book? Did someone just mention it to you, or just figured it out on your own?
It's what happened was I am working as a pharmacist. I have a good paying job and, I'm 26. I just wasn't happy. And I'm like, do I want to keep doing this thing for 5 years? There's no way, because I realized my values are freedom, taking risk, entrepreneurship, creativity. They have nothing to do with the corporate environment. And I figured, how do I get out of it? And I'm always interested in numbers and doing deals. Real estate always fascinated me. So I had no idea how to go about it. So I'm like, let me just go to Barnes and Noble every Friday, spend 3 hours. That was my routine, and kept reading and reading until one day, maybe it's time to just buy a property, right?
Nice. And you started with single family. Why single family? Why'd you start there? Did you, was it just because you didn't know about multifamily as a business, or what?
Yes. So this was back in 2013, 2014. And I think the information age was not at peak. We didn't have access to all this information and podcast and coaching and mentoring and all of these things. It was just kind of growing. So I didn't even really knew that it was available. So single family seemed that it was in my reach. And I realized that the most important part is taking first step and just going a little bit forward. So that's what I did at that time.
Nice. Okay, so tell us about your first deal then. So how'd you end up finding it? What did you do to it? And how'd you end up keep scaling out from there?
So the first deal was very, very tiny, $100,000 property. And I realized I needed $25,000 down and I have no money. And I asked myself, it's either believing in this limiting story that I don't have money or just being resourceful. So I reached out to 2 other pharmacist friends and we figured, let's come up with $8,000 each. So I'm like, okay, the problem solved, but how do I get the $8,000? So what I did is I opened a 401k account at my bank. no, with my employer, and they were matching the salary, and I could take all that money as a loan. So I did that in 2 months. I was able to get that $8,000. And I really learned that the question is not about money or time or skill. The question is about being resourceful and really wanting something bad. And then I used the same principle to buy a business when I had no money. And the same thing keeps repeating again and again.
Interesting. It's funny though, right? That limiting belief held you back from doing that little deal, but you got it done. So
Yep.
how did you first approach these guys then? So there's two other pharmacists, you approach them, you open up the dialogue. Did they first think you're crazy? What was like, how many no's did you get before you got to these two guys?
I mean, these two were close friends, and you do normally the pharmacist physician communities, they are not necessarily thrilled about buying real estate or jumping into it, especially when, you're completely outside of that world. And back in 2013, it felt like it's only 7 years, 6 years, but different world. It was pretty easy to convince them, but the first property it was a nightmare in terms of managing the tenant, and it was just everything was not going according to the plan at all. But I knew that I just have to like stick it out and just like do one more deal, another deal.
Yeah. So how did you structure that then? Did you just give them a return? Did they have equity, or what was that?
Yeah, it was just all of us had equity into the deal.
Okay,
Yep.
good. So basically then, to raise that first money, you gave them a piece of the deal. They put down the money. You
Yep.
guys got it cash flowing. Did you do the refi thing too?
No, we just did the cash flow, and after
Cash flow.
that, they
Good.
didn't want it to move on. But I started buying a couple more single family and 3 units, and I was only buying stuff that had a lot of value. So I was able to refinance, add another unit, and keep it rolling forward.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's funny that so many people have the limiting beliefs, and you just did it in one shot. Not everybody has the luck that you have, right? Some people like they just don't know anybody,
Yeah.
right? And so for those folks that might be listening right now, they're going to say, "Well, Ketan, I don't know any doctors and pharmacists. I want to plunk down all kinds of money to do a deal, right?"
Yep.
What do you say to those folks? Like,
So
how do you get around that?
yes, sure. So the thing is, the flavor of the challenge is always different. I got vanilla, you got chocolate or strawberry, right? At the end of the day, but you always have something. You maybe, if you don't know somebody, maybe there's a way to go to a meetup group, right? Maybe going to the Facebook group. The important question is, how bad do I want it? Am I going to believe in my vision, the possibilities, or my limitations? And the limitations could be, hey, I just have a busy job. I just don't have the time. Or I don't know anybody professional that would invest money with me. Or I don't know what I'm doing with the numbers. It could be anything. So the important question to ask yourself, where am I believing more? And if you're believing more in possibilities, you're going to want to do something. And even if it doesn't work, you'll just keep trying with it until you get somewhere.
Yeah. So it's really about believing that you can actually pull it off. I mean, that's the thing. That's ultimately, if you want to call it, the kernel of where the mindset is, right? It's like right at the very, very start is like you really have to want and believe in that deal before you start picking up the phone and making phone calls and reaching out to people, right? And that's the thing. I mean, I found the same thing. It was limiting beliefs that held me back. It's limiting beliefs that once I got the box from a company I was working at, I allowed it to knock me down for years, and it was big mistake. Should never have done that, right? And but I guess it's one of those things that you really have to apply yourself, get out there and find the deal first, match it up with some investors that might be interested. And in your case, you gave up equity, but I'm assuming you don't have to always give up equity if you don't want to, right? You can give them a nice, like a big fat return. I mean, that's another option, right?
Sure. So at that point, I wasn't sophisticated with, managing capital and raising money. But later on, I grew my business where I knew and I networked with the investors to leverage their capital and just give them, a promissory note or second position to do some smaller deals. And then I realized the time and energy that goes into these deals, it's not really worth it. Why don't I develop? I'm good at educating investors. I enjoy it. I'm good at numbers and presenting the deals. Why don't I leverage this skill and start raising $1 million, $2 million at a time, for bigger apartment deals where everything's just more effective, right? So there's all kinds of models out there that will serve you in your journey based on what your near goals are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important too, right? Because depending on the deal and depending on who your investors are, they're going to want different things. Some investors want the equity. Some investors just want a big fat return, like your hard money lenders. Like they just want a return. They have no interest usually they have no interest in acquiring your asset. They just want to get paid, right? For the most part.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I mean, it all depends on really catering to your investor community. But I think part of it too, as you touched on this, is the network. It sounds to me like you spent a lot of time networking with folks. So maybe talk a little bit about that. How
Sure.
did you build that network? How did you first realize you had to do it? And then what did you do to build it out?
Sure. So there are a lot of moving pieces if you want to raise capital efficiently and effectively. If you just want to spend time left and right and raise maybe $300,000, $500,000, it's okay. You don't need a system. But if your goals are bigger, you need a system. And I didn't realize it. So I spent like good 3-4 years to figure this thing out. So you need to develop your ideal investor profile. So for example, for me, I'm interested in folks that want to be passive LPs, that want to invest in value add multifamily, that are taking certain amount of risk, that likes metro areas, certain characteristics of the deal. That's my niche. So now people who talk about active partnering, I'm not interested. People who are talking about distressed communities and oversized returns, I'm not interested. So eventually you have to start with some basic criteria, but have a profile. It's like going out in the ocean, hoping to catch any fish. It's just not efficient. But if you know that if you're trying to catch a mackerel, you know what kind of boat to use, what kind of tackle, and how far you're going. So like if you are flipping, then you know that it involves this kind of risk and it's a 1-year term. So people who are looking for a longer term, they are not a good fit for you, right? So developing that criteria is very important. The other important part is your story. Too many investors focus too much on the deal. They're telling the investors, hey, this is the best market, best return. And that's important. But before that, investors really want to know who you are and why you're passionate about this thing and why they should trust you. Because writing a check, trust is the most important factor. That's what I found out. So I'll communicate with people what gets my juices flowing. And I was a pharmacist and numbers and things like that. So they see my vision. Now we are bonded, right? We are on the same wavelength. Now I could talk about this is the deal I have to offer. Are you interested or not?
It's funny because this one thing that I mention to people whenever like they come out to our live events or just talking to folks, they're looking at single family, they're looking at multifamily, they're looking at industrial, they're looking at new development, they're looking at flips, they're looking at all these different things. And I'm like, you got to focus on one thing, or at least focus on if you're going to focus on more than one thing, you have to have a good team backing you up. Like we do triple net, we do new development, right? And of course, rehab and stuff like that of bigger deals. Of course we do multifamily, but I have a strong team that's dedicated to each of those things.
Yes.
But if one person starting out is trying to do everything, just like you said, they're going to be stuck in the ocean trying to catch any fish they can. Well, it's not a good strategy for growth.
Absolutely. That's one of the foundation with my peak performance coaching is having clarity as to what your outcome is long term, what you are looking to do, how you're going to get there, what skills are missing, are you partnering or not, what is your strategy? Very, very important piece. And it's okay, you don't have to have everything figured out, but the important piece is to have some kind of foundation to start. And as you grow, you're going to get feedback that you use to revise it. Too many people don't use the feedback they are getting. And by the way, I have flipped homes. I have done luxury ground construction. I've done all sorts of stuff to finally get to a point to be calibrated and know that this is my thing. But for a lot of people, the challenge is they are not dedicating the 3, 6, or 9 months in the beginning to a particular strategy to really get the feedback if this aligns with them and their strengths and their passions and things like that.
Yeah. Now, this is one of your 5 pillars, right?
Yes.
This pillar. So let's go through the pillars then. What's the next one?
Absolutely. So the first thing is the clarity, right? So in the head space, you know what you're trying to create and why you're trying to create, which is very, very important. Not just that, hey, I want financial freedom. That's just a word. You need to have an emotional connection with it of why do you want it? What is it for you? And once you have ticked all that, now we move on to the strategy. What is the strategy for you? So if you are somebody that's working a full-time job and you are thinking I'm just going to buy some rental properties on the side, and if hypothetically your goal is $100,000 a year, but you don't have that time and energy to execute refinances and you're just hoping to invest your money, not the best strategy because you're going to run out of the capital sooner or later, right? So very, very important to look at your individual scenario and come up with the best roadmap that's for you, not for somebody else that said that it worked out for them, right? So a strategy that you could take to execute on your goals, basically, right? Now, the third pillar would be the action. Taking the action, daily, consistent action that is in line with your strategy, and watching for feedback. What's working, what's not working. Too many times we keep taking action and action's nothing working, but we don't know what to do about it. And then also taking inspired action, which means feeling that, I'm enjoying this is going to work, versus, I hope this works. The feeling where I'm going to reach out to 10 brokers. I hope too many people are there. Emotionally, you're misaligned. And I've been there. That doesn't help. So your action has to be in line with your strategy. It needs to be inspiring. You need to have fun with it. For me, it's coaching people, talking to investors. It's not talking to contractors and agents. It's just not really my thing. I could do it. So you have to find that for yourself, right? Once you have all that peaked, and there's so much into it, we are just going through the high level overview, right? After that, we go into leverage. You have to leverage your time, you have to leverage your emotions, and you have to leverage your energy. Very, very important, because we are in a fast-paced environment, and if you're not leveraging those things, you're only doing so much. And once you leverage all these things, you have all these things, and when you try to do all of these things, naturally for everybody, some kind of limiting belief and fear is going to pop. That's the number 5. I put it at the bottom. And as it pops, you just take care of it. And then when you're at the next level, now you just have another kind of belief or fear or something that's blocking you that you overcome. So it's a process, and it's just an evolution to keep on going. But with these, and some people are great at strategy and clarity, but they are not good at the execution. Some people are good at those 3 things, but leverage is their weaker point.
So what do you say for those people then? Like, what should they do? Should they partner up with somebody who can help them overcome those things, or what? I mean, I find that one of the great things about partnering with someone is that maybe like you're a high action individual, but the other person might have a very good attention to detail, and if you guys have the same end goal, then maybe you can partner up. Is that typically what you're thinking?
So depending on your case, particularly what is your biggest challenge, that's what I would focus on first. So if you don't have a strategy, I would drop everything and figure out that strategy first, because we always have one thing at that moment that is chokehold on the growth. Later on, it could be something else. But the key is to figure out what is the chokehold for you right now out of these 5 pillars, and how do we fix it? And you're right. Sometimes it turns out that, I just don't like doing this solo. And I always feel like, I'm not good at this particular aspects, and I don't even have the interest to learn about those things. It will be nice if somebody could complement in maybe finding deals and talking to agents, and I'll just focus all on the investor part, or I'll focus on boots on the ground. I don't want to do the deal analysis or something like that.
Right. Oh yeah. It's like I said, you have to go to where your strengths are, right?
Yeah.
And bring in those people to help support it, right? Is what it is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what would you say for those folks that, like, say for instance, raising capital, like we're talking about earlier?
Yes.
That's a key aspect when you're putting together a syndication like what you have today, or raising money for a flip, or whatever the case may be. But let's say, for instance, somebody doesn't feel like they're confident enough to do it, or maybe they feel, because a lot of it is feeling, right, that they're just not good enough. Like, how do you get over that?
Yes, great question. So first of all, I want to start by this myth that, when you have the deal, the money would follow. It's only like half advice. If you have the deal, the money would follow if you already have people in your database that you have
Correct.
built some kind of relationship or trust. Because
100% true.
right, I run the capital raising mastermind, so I'm taking a lot of applications week to week, and I talk to too many people that have amazing deals, and I thought it will be funded. And what happened? Well, 30 days ran out because I thought the money's going to follow, but from where? Would you write a check of $50,000 to somebody that just reached out to you out of the blue and, hey, I have this amazing deal, right? So the
Right.
first thing is for people to be aware of that thing. And in the real estate world, we are too heavy on finding deal, managing deal, which is great. But the other 50% is the capital raising part, right? So first is psychological shift. Because if you think that it's just not that important, I'm going to find the deal, I'm going to put all the time and energy, the money's just going to come, you're not going to care too much about it. So first you have to understand that it's equally important as finding the deal, right? Second thing, your chances are better if you are prepared for it before the deal. I learned that too, because once you have the deal under contract, you have 30 or 45 days, a lot of pressure at that time. But if you have done the work before, have some soft commitments, have built some relationship, it becomes a little easier, right? And now at the end of the day, raising capital is not necessarily rocket science. There's a science to it, but anybody could do it. There are certain things you need to understand. I knew nothing about it as a pharmacist. I learned all about drugs and dripping and side effects and clinical studies. It's just, in fact, I wasn't even speaking English when I came to this country 14 years ago, right? So, but we all have done something amazing that we are proud of, but it's very easy for us to forget about it.
Yeah.
So what I want to tell people is, if you think you are not good at raising capital, look back in your life, in your previous job or your business or family. I guarantee you there was an event or a moment, something was challenging. Somehow you made it work. You just forgot about it. And my question is, if you could do that, why couldn't you do this? The same example for me is, if I could learn English, get a doctor of pharmacy in accelerated pace, why wouldn't I be able to buy the first property? You use the same analogy. And then you're like, okay, if I could buy the first one, why cannot I buy the second one? And then you keep moving that thought process.
Yeah. But it sounds to me like step one is actually, before you even find the deal, start
Yes.
building up your pipeline of investors,
Yes.
getting out there, either positioning yourself as a subject matter expert, going to events. You don't have to, I mean,
Yes.
you don't need to put out a podcast.
Yes.
You can just go meet people, go talk to high net worth individuals. But
Yes.
I think one of the biggest part, Ketan, that I find is that they don't, people mainly make it about themselves as opposed to making it about the audience, right? Whoever you're
Yes.
speaking to. That's probably that to me is one of those big mistakes that people make. And sure, investors are always looking to put their money in on a good bet, so to speak. But at the same time, too, you really have to take the time to understand what they want, what they need, and try to give them what they need. And maybe, you know what, maybe right now they don't need to invest in a deal. Maybe they're looking for a great bottle of wine,
Yeah.
and go out and buy them a bottle of wine because maybe you just happen to have it. Give it to them as a gift. That's one way to break the ice. I've done stuff like that before, by the way.
Yes.
Just to meet people, and
Yes.
then when you do that a few times, that's how you like. Is it drastic? Yeah, it might be a little drastic for some folks listening right now, but if you really want to have access to those sorts of people, you have to get their attention. That's one way to get people's attention. Give them something they don't expect, right?
Absolutely. And you brought up a very, very important point. This is what I teach in my mastermind, is that you have to understand their psychology. It's not about you getting the investment. I make the mind shift. It's about you serving them. So when you talk to these people, there's a certain method to really understand if their challenge is, hypothetically, some investors, they are just not educated enough to make a decision. It's not about you or your deal. They just don't know what to do about it. So you have to educate. Now there are people, they like you, they trust you, but the fear is just such a strong sensation. They just haven't done that. So you have to know, okay, it's fear. This is how I could help them. If it's education, this is how I could help them. And the more you think in terms of service, you're going to get lost in it. It's not about you, because when you make it about you, you're going to think, what if the first deal fails? What if they say no? All this chatter comes. But when you think about, I learned this skill, how do I help somebody who I know that works with me? Instead of thinking, oh, I feel salesy to reach out to somebody I know, I work with it. But it's not, again, it's about you. But if you just change it on them, then the process is going to be much easier. You're going to get great results over time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But you know what, though? I'll tell you what, and I'm sure you experience this too. That whole adage about, oh yeah, you find a deal, the money will just show up. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, man, I've heard of plenty of stories out there where someone gets a deal under contract and they can't perform. They don't raise all the money. And this is these are people that, like, I know them and they're syndicators. They've supposedly done this before, but even they couldn't raise all the money for, like, some of these deals are pretty big that these guys are trying to do. So that tells me either they didn't underwrite it properly, right? The deal sucked to begin with, or they just totally underestimated their network. So it's one of those two things. And maybe there's other things too, but those are the two things that come to mind, is that one of those two things. But it tells me too that, you have to make sure that when you do find that deal, that you don't let your underwriting, make sure you're doing underwriting properly. Don't take it for granted, I guess.
Yes, I agree. And it's just a strategy. Do you want to be stressed out and just basically it's just throwing a dice at a casino table, hope it works out? Hope is just not a good strategy. How about doing some work? It will take the time and energy and money, but getting these soft commitment and being more confident. And in fact, I found that when you have a database of investors and some soft commitment ready, your likelihood of putting offers and getting deals is very strong. So years ago, I had this luxury development in Boston. I needed $1 million and I was able to put in over asking price because I knew that I could raise it, and I was able to raise it in 2 weeks. If I didn't have that database, then somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a little voice like, would I really come up with the money? Would people like this? And my thing is, why suffer and go through all that? Just do the work up front and at least get some kind of assurance and pipeline built for the investors, for your deal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, something you mentioned earlier, even if it means going out and getting the soft commitments first before you actually lock up the deal.
Yeah.
Get those soft commits. And for those that don't know, soft commitment is you basically float the deal with some of your key investors to see what they say about it. If they express a high degree of interest and that they may invest, to give you a verbal, great, that's good. But in that case, though, I typically like doing like 2 times the capital amount needed, at least 2 times, just to make sure if somebody drops out, that there's still enough people to back that deal up. So that part is huge right there. So tell us a little bit more about your program. Now you mentioned that you have a mastermind as well. So do you cover things like capital raising, that kind of thing?
Yes. So my capital raising program is all about one thing: how to take somebody who's already successful at buying and managing deals and make them an expert so they could raise millions of dollars every year. How to build their system, the outward facing messaging. So when investors see you, they see your trust, they can trust you. They know your experience, you know what you're doing, having your stories correct, having the right messaging in your communications, and how to find investors and connect with them and take you to this whole process. So you get leads, you convert investors, and later on, how to scale this thing, because now you have investors, but you still have to hunt deals and run the business. How do you do these things efficiently? Maybe it's using webinar, maybe it's using VA, and just the whole thing from start to bottom. And whether it's mindset challenge about reaching out to investors or marketing challenge, I cover it all. The goal is all about raising money.
Nice. And this is all done online, or were you doing in-person stuff or what?
So yeah, this is all just Zoom call. Certain aspects we meet up in a group setting, and certain aspects I'll give you my videos that I've recorded and things like that. And it's a hands-on. So I've done a lot of work with Tony Robbins and Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I also believe in transformation because information's out there, but I've realized that people get stuck because they try to apply that information and something's just in the way. They are just not sure. So obviously we know how you could start a podcast or write a blog or do this thing, but for most people the challenge is they can't figure out what's going in the head. So in the group setting, I use those techniques to kind of move them past through that as well. So it's just not some theory they learned that they don't use, but on a week to week basis they're actually making the progress and implementing the thing so they could start getting results.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Love it. Okay. Now, Ketan, for someone listening right now, what sort of bulletproof advice would you give that person if they were listening? What would you tell them?
Sure. I would say the bulletproof advice is this. At the end of the day, absolutely anything you want in real estate, you could have it. All you need to do is figure out what thoughts, emotions, and actions you have that's preventing you from having it. That's your only job. And you if you pay attention, you will find some thought, some emotion, some action that you're taking or not taking. And that's what you need to do. You fix it, you find something else, you fix it, and just keep going on.
Nice. That's words to live by. I did it myself. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Ketan, you can reach him via his website at ketanpatel.com. Hope you got some insight on how to get into that right right mindset rather, to craft your message, to get in front of investors and get them into your deals. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.